You know, at that time, you know, growing up, you know, we didn't think along these lines. So it's mainly looking back and reminiscing, you know, that things sort of slot into place, make a bit of sense. Now, generally speaking, thinking about growing up, I would say I need to describe myself as pretty much a child of the time and a child of a West Side village. We had, you know, we never went hungry or anything like that, but we were sort of on the edge, sort of. there was never any surplus.
Well, I remember us being very, very happy in school, in the playground, but not in the classrooms. The first, we were with Miss McArthur. She was our infant mistress, and she was so good to us. And that was such a huge change when we went into the next room, because the teacher there was anything but nice. And we didn't learn anything. Well, maybe mental arithmetic and simple things like that. If you didn't know the answers, you could point it over the fingers or the belt. So it wasn't very pleasant.
And when I went to school, I don't know why, but our infant mistress, she had the habit of, if you lived near the school, as soon as you turned 4, she was making you go to school. Well, making the parents allow you to go to school. I was only 4 and a few months when I went to school. And I used to stand on the seat looking over to the house, crying, wanting home. So did Bimbo, Iain Macaulay. He lived near the school too. And we were too near the school. We were seeing everything that was going on at home and wanting home. But in our day, we did have a slate, I would say the first 2 years before charters started coming in. But the teachers were wild. The infant mistress was Miss McArthur. She was nice, she was good. But then we went to teachers who you were scared to go to school. If you weren't bright and very clever, they sort of didn't bother with you. And the strap, you were so tired of this strap. The boys really got it hard. 6. We got off with about 2 or 3 on the hand every day if you didn't know your schoolwork.
I went to school in 1939, I would say, and well, the infant teacher then was a Miss McArthur from North Shawbost, and a very nice lady she was too. And most of the teachers here were from Shawbost and Bracken at that time, but there was. I think they were different to the teachers they have today, but they were quite strict. They had kept good discipline in the class, and I'm sure they had to.
Everybody spoke Gaelic, and I remember a lot of during the war. That was during the war. I was a kid here, and a lot of the boys came from Glasgow. They because of the Blitz, they were sent up here for safety, and all these kids were fluent Gaelic speakers, and they are to the present day. because they learned the Gaelic. They had to learn the Gaelic if they were going to participate in the play that we had, and because we spoke in Gaelic all the time, and we weren't going to change because they were there. So they learned. I speak to quite a few of them now, even to the present day, and they're all fluent Gaelic speakers. Of course, they came from Gaelic speaking families, and that helped because their mother and father spoke. Although they were living in Glasgow or whatever, their mother and father spoke to them in Gaelic, so that kept the thing going. So that they're fluent.
100 pupils in the Shawbost school, and that was in Shawbost alone, in the Shawbost village and Dalbeck. But now they come from Tulstahurlish and right down to Badwas, and there's very few in school today compared to what was there.
Oh, the funk was a big day. My father used to, all the men folk, they went out to the moor in the morning, and when they came back to the funk was up by Lochrinnevat, if you know where that is, just out on the main road. I lived at just not far from Lochrinnevat, and when the men came with the sheep, we took like sandwiches, but it wasn't sandwiches, it would have been scones and milk and things like that. We took that out to them. We didn't have flasks in these days. So it was a big day, a big occasion, and you saw lots of people in the funk, men and women and children, of course.
Well, at that time we were young anyway, but once we grew up, we went to the moor in the morning. We left here about 6 o'clock in the morning and went 3 or 4 miles to gather the sheep and take them to the funk, which would take us to about midday before the sheep were in the funk, and then we started shearing.
Men came from Carlo. They'd be walking the moors to the funk, and the older ladies, they would be taking some with a creel and some just with bags, like milk and scones for them. They'd be hungry when they'd come home, and on the way in between the funk and our house there was a bohan, well, a village pub, and the only day that it never opened till 9 o'clock at night, but on a funk day it was open all day, and they would be going in for a pint, celebrating, or quenching their thirst or whatever. That was a day that they did quite a bit of drinking.
Yes, we used to go to the peats. We used to turf them and cut them and all that, and we had quite a bit of walking to do. But sometimes some people would hire a lorry or something, and if you were on the road to the peats when the lorry went by, they would stop and give you a lift. And it was great going to the peats and eating salt fish and potatoes at dinner time. And when you went out to cut the peats, you took old pans and things and dishes out, and you left them in a heap and put some turf around them when you were going to go out to lift them and going to carry them onto the roadside it was lorries then, because they were so far away. But then the tractor started, and we started cutting the peats nearer home.
In days gone by, it was a community effort. Most of the crofters clubbed together to cut the peat, but a lot more peat were cut at that time, and every croft cut peats then.
They used to take them to the road with wheelbarrows, and the poor ladies with a creel on their back, taking the peats from the peat bank to where the lorry could get. And they would have, I think it was 9, that was the crew to take home peats. The driver and 9 or 8 and the driver, I'm not sure. And most people had 3 loads of peats or 4, and in the summer, well, it was always in the summer they took home the peats. For dinner or whatever, a salmon was the highlight of the season to have for the day you took home the peats, trying to get a salmon, and the Kayos would be making a dumpling. That was another thing that was celebrating. But I can't remember in my early days.
That was my father's weaving shed. So, and he was, you know, when the tweeds were, it was, sometimes they would be very busy, but then they'd have very quiet periods as well. But it was a good life for my father because he had sheep as well. And, you know, he could do it in his own time. It wasn't like an 8 to 5 job. He could he'd be after sheep in the morning and go to do the weaving in the afternoon, or even late at night, you know, after tea time. So people were always busy. Yes.
There was a loom in the home anyway, and I started to learn weaving when I was 14, before I left school. I left school at 15 and started weaving full time then. And I was weaving for most of my life. I wove Harris tweed for over 60 years before I gave it up. Well, weaving we combined weaving with crafting, and it was quite a heavy job to be peddling a loom all day and doing the craft most of the day anyway. And the best thing about it was you could do the craft work and do the weaving in your own time. You could choose when you wove. You could be doing the craft work on a nice day like this, and then in the evenings go to the loom and do quite a few hours there, and it worked fine. That was what most crafters did here at that time.
It was mostly, I started with a single shuttle loom, and then I graduated in I graduated to a 6 shuttle loom, and then it was getting complicated with the shuttles, and the designers were designing new designs in the cloth. Basket weave, Celtic weave, 8 cycle, 4 cycle, 6 cycle, and I got onto all that.
Well, there was no fast foods anyway. We had herring and fish. We had salt herring. We had a big barrel of salt herring, which did us all winter. If you had to, you know, as a standby. We had our own meat, but there was no freezer, so most of the mutton, most of it had to be salted to keep it during the winter. We had hens, and we had cows. Usually in every house there was 2 cows, one milking and the other one waiting to calve. We had our own butter, our own cottage cheese and our own cream. And it was really good food.
My granny was from Braga, and as a child I used to go to Braga with her and spend a few nights at her sister's house. And I loved the Black House. It was just great. It was an auntie for us. I don't know if I'd like to have been staying there all the time, but it was very nice to go and stay for a few nights.
Yes, well, I was born in a Black House, and I was in the Black House for quite a number of years. And it was an open fire we had. I don't remember. I remember one Black House with the fire in the middle of the floor, but we used to go and see it. But we had the fire, we have the fireplace there, and that's where we did all our meals. Baking and not baking like buns and what they do today, but scones and moat cakes and all that. It was all done on the fire. You had no electricity, you had no water. You had to take all the water in, put it out, take the clean water in and put it out dirty. Washing and everything.
But I remember I used to sleep with my granny, and my granny's sister was in the other bed, and the beds were head to head. And there was a window on the side of the house. Some of them only had the skylit windows. And in the morning, my granny's niece would come up with tea, to give them tea in bed. And when they opened that door, the smoke from the fire used to come up, and you could see that in the sunshine. It's what we would call a blowdown nowadays, and we wouldn't appreciate it at all. But things like that stick in your memory. And
the Docthrales dance. That's the first dance I ever was at, a Docthrale dance. When I left school, when you weren't allowed to dance till you were 15. Well, that was parents' rules. And the day I left school, somebody died and the dance was cancelled. So it was next Wednesday before I got to the first dance, a Docthrale dance, and with my brother being much older than me, his friends all asked me to dance, and I was very privileged to be asked to dance by like Neil Dan, Taramot Vori, Calum Vori, and my brother Shawnee. They all taught me how to dance. They were all good dancers.
If you could see Donald's father at the dance, he was a great dancer. We used to go to the dances when they come home from them now. And when the bands started coming, we were getting a bit modern. The bands used to finish about between 1 and 2, between about 2 o'clock. Now that wasn't enough for us. If there was somebody that could play the box, we kept on. Usually coming home at 6 o'clock in the morning. But that was the only enjoyment we had. And at this time of the year, in the latter year, it was strenuous, because with football and dances and all cattle shows and things, we used to be on the floor usually 3 nights a week. But it was really, you went to dance, not to shivel around. You were dancing. There was no this of swinging around to the other side. It was really good. It was.
I think that's a big loss as well, because we had dances in Carlow, Braga, Barvis, even we used to go to Borv as well, because there was a Calum Malik. He was an accordion player, and he had a wee band. I think 2 or 3 of them in the band, and he was also a bus driver. So he had the bus at home. So he took the bus to borrow, and that was our lift. So that was great, and it was going past the corner at our house anyway, so we could have lived there. Well, the dances were great, and you got to know people from all over the west side by going to the dances.
Earlier days, the wakes were held in the house of whoever died. But nowadays, the wake is in the church and the funeral service, and then it's the coffin is carried on a bier for, say, 100 yards, and everybody takes a turn to carry it. And then it goes in the hearse and it's taken to the cemetery, and that's where the burial takes place. Wherever it's going, it could be either go to Braga or to Dalmore. Some of the folk in the Shawbost have their lair in Dalmore, and the other half of Shawbost have their in Braga. Most of the cemeteries in the island are beside the sea. That's what, well, there's sandy soil there, and it's an easier place to dig. If it's possible at all, the cemetery would be near to the sea where the sandy soil is.
I remember when my uncle here, he died of TB. The wake was, I think it was always 2 nights, and it was always in the house. And the funeral was from the house. So, and when there was a death in this area, nobody around about would work. Everybody would just, if they were weaving, or everything had to be left until after the funeral. So it's changed now. The wakes are in the church, and the funerals leaves from the church as well. So there's big changes.
It would be nice if people would be in and out of each other's houses more. Not that we do a bit of visiting houses as we are in here. We're not change. It would be nice if we had plenty people to go to peats, and we could have a big peat stack behind the house instead of an oil tank.
Well, it would be great if people were in and out of each other's houses as it was when we were growing up. And we used to go visiting each other, you know, when we were teenagers. We used to go visiting each other to, you know, different houses every night. And we used to take our knitting with us.
The first night I had to come to sleep in Shawbost after getting married. I'm leaving Carl away. But it was, I had a wonderful father and mother-in-law, especially my mother-in-law. She was a gem. She was really, really very, very, it was from, my mother had died when I was a year and 2 months, and I never called mother as a child, but she was my mother to me. So it was, I made a good choice in that part.